Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Pastrňák sent it out in front of Malkin, the save, they score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance, Patra right in, and goalie scores. Oh my, what a move by the rookie.
2-on-1, Pastrňák moving in with Marchand, get it to it, score!
The zone, Coyle dances in, backhand, score!
Lindholm right wing corner, Pastrňák is there, he scores! David Pastrňák wins it for Boston!
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. We are recording this episode on Monday, November 17th, which is a somewhat different and unusual game day for our Boston Bruins. They'll be playing Monday night against the Carolina Hurricanes. Before we get started with a jam-packed agenda, I want to welcome in my co-host, Karoline with a K, and say, how does it feel to be talking about the first place Boston Bruins in the Atlantic Conference?
Pleasantly shocked. It almost doesn't feel real, but what I have seen in the last, I don't even know how many days now, 10 days, 14 days, what I see on the ice is not a fluke product. So I shouldn't be surprised, and yet I am.
No, and we are not alone in that surprise, because I think there are other groups of people who talk and watch a lot more hockey than we do across the league, are also in a bit of a holy shit mode when it comes to the Boston Bruins and how much better they are playing than anyone anticipated. Now, is it sustainable? Who the hell knows? But all I know is I'm going to enjoy watching what I see for as long as it lasts and take any bad when it comes. But for the time being, we have got a team that is playing some pretty damn good team hockey.
Yeah.
So we'll get started by setting our table. So today we're going to talk about the week that was and the week ahead, as we normally do. We are going to talk about some Bruins roster transactions that just came across our wires earlier today. We will also talk about some milestones that were reached by a couple of members of our Boston Bruins and some injuries that are starting to pile up, which have necessitated the roster transactions that we'll be talking about today. But before we start taking our deep dive into the Bruins, let's take our usual spin around the rink, and we'll start with our old friend, who will always be a Boston Bruins in many of our eyes, but Brad Marchand, who hit the 1,000 point milestone.
It's
unbelievable. He should have done it in a freaking Bruins uniform, but I'm not going to go back there. I'm still bitter. I'm still pissed off at both sides that they couldn't get it goddamn figured out to keep him here. But congratulations to Brad Marchand. 1,000 points is something to talk about.
Every single day that I see a picture, a video, someone making a post, any mention of Brad Marchand, every single time, it's like a tiny dagger to my heart. And I'm so sad that he's no longer in a Boston Bruins uniform. But I love this player. I'm so thrilled for him. I saw a great quote from him where he perfectly summed up his entire career in saying the 1,000 penalty minutes represents the first half of his career, and the 1,000 points represents the second half of his career. And no truer words have been spoken about this player's path.
He's going to be a Hall of Famer. His name is on a Stanley Cup twice now. His name is etched in the Boston Bruins record books. He's now reached 1,000 points. It's a no-brainer that he is a Hall of Famer.
Yep, exactly. The trifecta: 1,000 games, 1,000 points, 1,000 PIMs. What more could you ask for?
So yeah, congrats to him. And the other little tidbits from around the league is that I don't know if you were aware of this. I had totally forgotten about this. But the Global Series happened this weekend in Sweden, where the Penguins and the Predators played 2 games. The first game went to the Nashville Predators in a little bit of dramatic fashion, where they were down 1-0. They tied it up, and Steven Stamkos netted the game winner in overtime. The second game was all Penguins all day, all the time. They waxed the floor with the Predators 4-0. But I had totally forgotten that this game was even happening. One game was on at 9:00 in the morning, and then it was on at 2 p.m. But it just doesn't seem to me that the NHL really did that much in terms of marketing, unless we were all asleep at the switch.
Which, I mean, also could be possible, but I feel like I'm chronically online enough, and that I have one of my socials algorithms set up to basically be just pure hockey stuff. I didn't see it. I saw all of the stuff afterwards, but I didn't see much ahead of time. So I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah. Anyways, wanted to touch about that. There are a couple of significant injuries brewing in the league right now, none the least of which is a story that has me wondering, is there more to the story than meets the eye? With the injury to Jack Hughes, who is going to be out for 2 months after having to undergo finger surgery. And the story itself saying that it was somewhat of a freak accident at a restaurant. Now, again,
right.
I love the drama of this stuff. I'm a woman. I'm going to admit to it. But this sounds eerily similar to a story that occurred with our very own David Pastrňák.
Oh, yeah.
A few years ago, where there was an event that David attended, and he apparently slipped and fell on the streets of the North End somewhere and ended up injuring himself in his hand. Correct. Now, there were different stories that were told about David Pastrňák's condition at the time of leaving this event. So I just wonder if there's more to the story than meets the eye. But having Jack Hughes out for 2 months,
it's huge for
it's
them.
no joke
Big
for
problem.
the New Jersey Devils. So that's going to be a tough one for them to overcome. And the other injury, although that might have settled itself, is Austin Matthews has been out of the lineup since they were in town on Tuesday night to play the Bruins. And as we recall, and those of us who watched the game recall, Nikita Zadorov hit him pretty good. And it seems clean to me. I'm not playing homerism. It seemed clean to me. And Matthews looked a bit wobbly as he got up. And then I believe he then tried to hit Zadorov.
Then he tried, and then that did.
And then that didn't go. That did not end well for Austin Matthews. He ended up having to leave that game, and he did not return. So that is, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are struggling mightily right now.
I wonder, and this is pure speculation, I wonder if this is at all related to his lengthy injury issue last year that happened, I want to say December-ish, and he disappeared for quite a while. He went to like Switzerland or something and then came back. And I don't know. It just makes me wonder, because he was still struggling with whatever that issue was even after he came back. And so I would be worried if I were a Leafs fan, which I am not. So I'm not worried, but I would be worried that it's the same thing that just hasn't resolved itself. And that honestly,
who knows? Who knows? So, but again, one of the stars of the league, right?
He hasn't done much for them this
season. And I haven't been able to find anything online that tells me what Austin Matthews' status is. We know Jack Hughes is going to be out for the foreseeable future, but for at least 2 months.
He's not even on IR, correct?
Correct.
So
yeah. And I also want to make note of the fact that our Boston Fleet are preparing for their season. Yes. They have preseason games. Actually, they had one preseason game on the 15th. They're scheduled to play another preseason game today on Monday the 17th. Their regular season begins on November 23rd it starts in Lowell at the Sondas Center on November 23rd against Montreal. And
nice.
Unlike the Boston Bruins, the Fleet have named a captain.
That's right, because she either left or was traded as part of the expansion, I think.
Their captain of last season was traded due to the expansion, correct. So Megan Keller will wear the C for the Boston Fleet this year, and her assistant captains will be Jamie Lee Rata and Alana Bueller.
Nice.
So we wish them well, and we'll try to provide updates in our spin around the rink as their season gets underway.
Exactly.
All right. We got games to talk about. Games and more games. This schedule is absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
It is. Well, and on top of all of that, with the injuries that have been occurring, either because of the sheer pace of play that's been happening with these games every other day, downtime, recovery time being less, who knows? But officially now we have a number of players who have been injured, have had their injury status kind of upgraded, primarily at this point for a combination of cap-related purposes. So, for example, Jordan Harris is officially now on LTIR, so his paycheck kind of is off the books at this point. We know he's not going to be back for a while anyways. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense. But we've also now seen Victor Arvidsson and Casey Middlestat both elevated to the injured reserve. Again, as a reminder, that doesn't their paychecks are still on the books. However, this means that Boston can now fill their spots on the active roster, which is important because after the game against Carolina, they're heading out west.
3 games.
Yes. They need to have that full complement of players and then some. So we've seen Blumel getting called up, likely as a replacement specifically for Arvidsson. This is one guy that I'm very excited to see. We've talked about
a lot of people are. Yeah.
But there just quite literally wasn't room for him based on the position that he most excels at. And with Arvidsson out, he can finally hop up and actually show us what he's got. So I'm very excited to see him play. And then we've also got Riley Tufte coming up. Likely he's just the extra because, you can easily, well, I say easily, but relatively easily play a game down a defenseman. But considering Boston really still needs to be focusing on making sure that they can convert on offensive chances, they're bringing up an extra forward. So we've got him. And then
the other bit of news that happened while we were pre-gaming before the podcast is that the Bruins have waived Johnny Beecher.
Yes.
Now, our speculation is that according to the Bruins website, he is being waived with the intention of assigning him to Providence. But there's always the risk he doesn't clear and someone could claim him.
Exactly. Because the Bruins currently, and of course by the time this airs, I don't know what time he went on waivers exactly, but his fate will be known. But it's likely that he was placed on waivers for the purposes, not just obviously of being sent to Providence, but for cap-related reasons, because right now he is still on the books in terms of his paycheck. And so the Bruins are actually over the cap by $200,000+. And so obviously they need to get into cap compliance. And he's an easy one. He's been injured. So it's kind of a win-win because then he can go back down to Providence. He can get playing time. He can get conditioned up as well. And it's enough, it's a risk that they're willing to take with him.
And it doesn't seem like, based on the fact that he does have some type of an injury right now. And honestly, his performance has been a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah.
It's likely that he will clear waivers. The other injury that is still a gray area is Charlie McAvoy.
Oh, yeah.
And for anyone who didn't watch the game on Saturday night, shame on you because it was a hell of a game between the Canadiens and the Bruins. It reminded me of the days of old between these two teams. But Charlie McAvoy took a puck to his face, jaw.
We saw a tooth come flying out in the slow-mo.
Right. So the update from Marco Sturm earlier today was still rather vague and unclear in that Charlie was still undergoing medical evaluation or doctor's appointments. Nobody seemed to know whether or not he would need any surgery or what his status will be. He's likely not going to play tonight. Sounds like Henry Jokiharju is going to draw back in. I would be a little concerned if they make that West Coast trip without Charlie Mack in the lineup, given the way that he's been playing of late.
Yeah. Well, the thoughts that kind of run through my mind, it's obviously anytime a player gets a puck into the face, and obviously he has lost some teeth. We don't know the degree to which he's been injured. Is it a 2019 Chara level broken jaw situation? Although, of course, he came back like as soon as humanly possible, and that involved.
But he's not human.
Right. He's not a human being. He's clearly an
He's
alien.
not human.
Or is it more akin to what happened to Mason Lohrei a couple of seasons ago in Columbus? He had a puck kind of roll up his stick and smacked him in the mouth, and he also lost a couple of teeth, but he didn't break his jaw. He just had to have oral surgery, which, the turnaround time on that is different. I am also concerned if he's not going to be able to make the trip out west, only specifically because of the turnaround time. So this is actually going to be a really, really tough California trip because there's only one day in between the Monday game for Carolina, and then they play Wednesday in Anaheim.
Right.
If there was an extra day, I would say maybe he'd be able to get out there or have whatever he needs done. Not knowing if we're talking about a broken jaw or if we're just talking about teeth situation. But I'd be worried that he's not going to be out there. Do I think the Bruins, the way that they've played over the last several games, also having Hampus Lindholm there, do I think they could still walk away with points? Absolutely. I don't think that they will totally blow it. But then again, I thought the same when they went out west at the start of the season. But the team was very different at that point. And they were also without Lindholm. I don't love it, but I really hope he can get
let's face it. Jeremy Jacobs can fire up the jet and fly Charlie Mack out to California separately if he wants to. So
true. Yeah, because they didn't put him on IR. They didn't put him because the other thing is, by being placed on IR, while it doesn't take the salary off the books, it does take the player off the roster for a set number of days. They certainly don't want to put him on IR if they were able to get him in for surgery today, if they can get him on a plane tonight or Tuesday during the day, if he misses a game, but they can get him out there. I don't know. I feel like they would try and get him out there.
Yeah, hopefully we'll know more if there's an update from Marco when he meets with the media before the game tonight. A little concerning. Injuries are starting to pile up a little bit at a time where this team is figuring things out. Yeah. They're working well together. The lines are gelling with each other. So the timing of this is injuries. Is there ever an ideal time
There's
for injuries? No.
There's not.
But every team faces this. So I suppose if you're going to pile up injuries, I guess I would rather have that happen at the front end of the season as opposed to the back end. If you're fighting to be in a playoff spot, for the time being, we've got some good stuff to talk about here. We've got some good stuff. We'll start with the Leafs game that occurred on Veterans. That was last Tuesday, 11-11, same score as the game in which they played on Saturday night. Bruins won 5-3. Anthony Stolarz was pulled for the second time in the game against the Bruins. It seems that this change might have been made as a result of maybe there was an injury to Stolarz because he wasn't on the bench for the remainder of that game. A lot of speculation in Toronto about, was it an injury? Was it because he was pissed off at Berube for getting pulled again? Who the hell knows? That team is in a bit of a disarray right now. And you know what? I love it. I love it.
The schadenfreude is just delightful at this point to see them completely crash and burn. The Bruins were everything that the Leafs were not in this game. It was a copy-paste situation from Saturday to Tuesday. The Bruins were dominating in the face-off dot. They were dominating with rush chances. They were just they're clearly...
And that's all we heard about how good, which is fine. You look at the stats. Okay, I'm not faulting anyone for that. Oh, the Leafs are so good in the face-off dot, so good in the face-off dot. And you're right. The Bruins pretty much dominated them. The other thing was that the Leafs were so undisciplined in that first period here in Boston, very undisciplined. It was almost like they were trying to play a similarly aggressive game as the Bruins play, but they're not built in that manner.
No. And I think, again, the way that the Leafs are playing right now, very, very similar to what we saw in Boston last year. Those kinds of undisciplined penalties, the way that they're kind of performing out on the ice, the lack of chemistry, the lack of a cohesive team.
Right.
That's exactly what we saw last year. And we've preached this on the podcast since the dawn of time, that it's not just having the skills to be the good hockey player out on the ice. You have to be a good team. You have to have the right culture, the right mindset to come together and play the right way. And when you don't, it shows on the ice. Things start to happen that you don't want to see happen, like these undisciplined penalties, those stick infractions like we saw last year, where they're doing it because they got beat. They couldn't keep up, and we've also said for a number of seasons now that the Leafs' problem isn't the lack, again, of skill and talent and the right players necessarily. The team culture is absolutely garbage, and it's been like that for years. I mean, Turner was never truly the problem, and clearly that's been proven out in his absence that, oh, wait a minute, the team issues continue, and now we don't have his talent. Whoops. They clearly made a mistake. So
I will never understand the rationale for taking the C from John Tavares and giving it to Austin Matthews. No. I don't understand it. I don't see what the scope and purpose of that was. No. But be that as it may, Nikita Zadorov seems like on a mission to single-handedly just send guys to the cold tub. To the cold tubs in a quick hurry. I mean, not only did he hit Scott Lawton in the game Saturday night and sent him back to the dressing room, Austin Matthews was lost for this game as a result of the initial hit from Zadorov, and then Matthews might have tried to stick up for himself, and which to me says, why isn't someone else on your team? And I get it. Domi tried.
Yeah, well, that was stupid.
Max Domi, to his credit, trying to engage with Zadorov, and much to my surprise, pleasantly surprised, Nikita Zadorov saying to himself, "This is not worth my time. We're here to win a game. This is not worth my time. Fight this guy." So that game was another solid team game from the Bruins. Jeremy Swayman was unbelievable in the third period of that game. The Leafs did try to make it interesting and push the score to 4-3 in the third period. Yeah. But Swayman was locked in. He was locked in. I will say, penalties are a problem for me.
Oh,
right?
yeah. They continue to
But
be.
what's a bigger problem? There's two things that piss me off. Too many men on the ice penalty. Lots of things piss me off. But on the top of my hockey list, too many men on the ice penalties piss me off. And giving up shorthanded goals. Piss me off. Yeah. So in the first period of that game, as well as the Bruins played, they had a power play opportunity, again, due to an undisciplined penalty taken by the Maple Leafs. And Charlie McAvoy had an egregious turnover. Egregious. There's no other way to describe it. And I would have liked a save by Jeremy Swayman on that shorthanded goal. But that ended up tying the game. Now, those can be huge momentum. As much momentum that you can gain from a good power play unit, a team can also gain the same momentum from a shorthanded goal. You just cannot let that happen.
Absolutely not. No, I agree. That was nerve-wracking to say the least, and a little unsettling to see that happen so quickly but considering that Boston was able to recover as quickly as they were, while it didn't completely absolve him of the sin of the turnover, it was great to see Boston turn the page after such a big mistake, and then not just turn the page to move on, but turn the page and take back control over the game.
They did make the Leafs pay for being undisciplined. And by the same token, the Leafs were only 1 for 5 on the power play. And one of which I thought they had a 5-on-3 for a period of time in that game. Not ideal to allow a team like the Leafs, who has a lot of firepower, offensive firepower in its repertoire, 5 power play opportunities.
Yes.
And huge milestone in that game.
David Pastrňák, he's climbing his way up to the top, and I would expect within 3 years or so, we might be looking at 3 to 4 years, we might be looking at a new leader of career goals. Keep an eye, because this kid, he's not even 30 yet.
No, he scored goal number 400 and goal number 401 in the same game.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to say this to people. For those of you who were butthurt or bitching about the fact that the Bruins came off the bench to celebrate Pasta's 400th, I say, get a effing life. Can we not celebrate anything anymore? Can we not have a little bit of goddamn fun? What are we doing here?
Right.
Give me a freaking break.
I
So
know.
what? Anyways, I digress.
It's a great thing. Boston has been going through it for the last year, and they're finally in a good place, and they want to celebrate. You go ahead and celebrate, because you know what? 400 goals
season we had last year. I say celebrate whatever the hell you want this season.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah, great.
Well, and what I will also celebrate, as a little bit of a slight tangent, is the fact that going into the Ottawa game, all right, we're now pushing our luck with the number of wins that we've had. This is a team that has had our number. Is this going to be a scheduled loss? How are they going to show up to it? And then how are they going to rebound after the possible likely loss against Ottawa? And I'm going to celebrate that whole situation, because even though the Senators, again, they have had Boston's number for whatever reason.
What the hell? Yeah.
And yes, there was a large number of self-inflicted wounds. That the Bruins did not roll over and give up.
No.
They pushed, and they didn't just let Ottawa take it and run. And coming off of that, they went to Montreal, and that was one of the most solid games I've seen them play this season, and they've already had a number of very solid games. It was a very competitive game. It was very evenly matched, yet I felt that Boston was cool under pressure. They were calm, collected, doing their thing, playing their game, and not getting ruffled by the constant chances, also by the Maple Leafs, and getting caught up in the history of the rivalry and what it means to play in this cathedral of hockey, that you're not only playing against the Montreal Canadiens when you go to the Bell Center, you're also playing against the fans
and the officials. And it started in the game the officials in the game in Ottawa absolutely sucked.
Yeah,
absolutely
it's not great.
Sucked. They weren't much better in Montreal. And if you're not going to call embellishment penalties when we can all see them on our TVs, then why the hell is the rule even in place? Like Tim Stützle is a master of ceremonies now when it comes to embellishment. And the fact that the officials buy it, you should be effing embarrassed.
It's
to be so bad. Now, is that not the reason why the Bruins lost that game?
No,
that game was a bit frustrating and maddening, because, again, you could have taken a point out of that game.
Yeah.
Because you were your own worst enemy, because you allowed yourself again to get into a potential run and gun with Ottawa, who clearly has more speed than you do, and their forechecking game is better right now than yours is.
Yeah.
So you had self-inflicted wounds in that game. And also, Ottawa kicked the crap out of you in the faceoff shots.
It was horrible.
Like 60% to, 40%.
It was bad.
It
Yeah.
was bad.
Yep.
So, and they ended your win streak. We all knew it had to come to an end sooner or later.
Yeah.
But the fact that the mistakes were self-inflicted, I think is still a little bit of a bone of contention with this team. It periodically rears its ugly head.
Yeah.
But that game in Montreal, to me, was chef's kiss.
Yep. Yeah.
How long have we been waiting for this rivalry to be reignited again? And it was on Saturday night. It was awesome. One of the most fun games of the season.
Yeah. I mean, that was exactly what I have been hoping for when I say that I hope that Montreal can get it together. When I say that I'm rooting for them to some extent, that they can get better, that they can be better, that they can be competitive, because it means that this rivalry can come back to life. I'm of a generation where the last time the Habs were really, really good, I mean, I was in elementary school the last time that they won a Stanley Cup. In my lifetime, the primary rival for the Boston Bruins has been the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's the team that I've seen the Bruins fight against time and time again, year after year, especially in the postseason. Now, yes, there have been times when we've had those classic Montreal run-ins, that was excellent, but not consistent to the degree that it's been with Toronto. And it's when it comes to hockey in that sense, I'm a purist. If we're talking original six, we got to have those old rivalries continue to exist. I hope it's sustainable so that it is a long-term rivalry that we can keep seeing, because especially if the Leafs are going to be going down the toilet, we need somebody. We need something.
Well, I think it's given the historical aspects for both teams and the epic playoff series that have occurred, which in those playoff series have had some long-standing impacts on each franchise. If the Bruins didn't pull out Game 7 in 2011 against the Montreal Canadiens, I venture to guess that not only would Claude Julien have been fired, I would say that the entire management corps might have been fired at that point. So, these teams have a long-standing history with each other, and it's good for business and it's good for the league to have original six franchises be relevant and competitive again. So that game had everything. And the tone was set right from the drop of the puck by none other than Nikita Zadorov, to which is like, we're in Montreal. Why not? Why not fight?
Yeah, why not? Well, obviously it was a planned situation. And I got to say, my favorite part about that particular fisticuff, if you caught it at the very end, they gave each other a brief hug. Like, good job. Like, a pat on the back. And I was like, that's excellent. I love this. I love this so much. Because it's not just about Boston going and playing Montreal and having the fights and the scrums and stuff. Because, yes, that's great. And we love it. And it gets the crowd going. And that's an aspect that has always existed, even when one team was good and the other team wasn't. What really made this game truly special and excellent was the fact that this was an exciting, competitive game. I'm not mad if Boston beats the Habs 9-1, but I'd much rather watch the game that was this weekend, because it was fantastic. It had everything. It had everything you could want.
It felt, even watching it at home, felt like a playoff atmosphere. Tanner Jeannot wasn't shy about getting involved in the physicality. Mark Kastelik wasn't shy. You had guys laying themselves out to block shots. And Charlie McAvoy, I think, had a crushing hit on someone in the game. Mason Lohrei blocked a shot. The one drawback was the number of penalties that the Bruins took in that game. They were perfect, 7 for 7 on the penalty kill, but 2 of those penalties were 5-on-3s. that
know.
lasted well over a minute. The Bruins did a great job killing them off, but again, not ideal. And the McAvoy injury occurred in that game.
The statistic that actually surprised me the most going into this game, at the very start they mentioned, and it is still the same today, is that Boston went into and left that game 6th in the league in their power play percentage. 6th with 25.4%. 6th, Maria.
Well, I know. We've gone from years where, is this team ever going to score a goddamn power play goal? Credit to the coach who's now taken over the power play units. They're swinging the puck around, thank God, a lot faster.
And the
than
movement
they had
is
been
great.
before. The movement is great. The entries are good.
Yeah. It seems like everything is starting to finally come together, that whatever Sturm's plan was is finally coming together, and you could reasonably expect at this point that what you want to see happen out there, whether it's power play, PK, 5-on-5, it's going to happen, that they are actually able to execute on the plan. So that's just, I couldn't be happier. Yeah, so a lot of things to give stick taps to this week for sure.
This week, yes. So my stick taps, I know if people are going to find this shocking, I am going to give a little stick tap to Mason Lohrei.
Yeah.
Because since he has come back in the lineup, now he's been back for 4 games, he's registered 4 points, and he's not a minus player right now. And he's been good. He's been solid. He's been good. And he's making quicker decisions with the puck, especially in our own end.
Yeah.
And I think this is the guy, this is the player that the Bruins invested in when they gave him that extension.
Yep.
And he needs to understand that there's a balance that he needs to reach between being a good defenseman and contributing to the offense.
Yeah. Well, right now, Mason Lohrei, per your favorite player stat, he's a +2 and he's second in plus minus. So there you go. I think it was just a matter of putting him in a position where he could be successful and challenged enough where he can still do what he naturally wants to do, which is obviously be a little more offensive. He's had a number of assists. He got a goal. So I think, and I'll be curious to see what the long-term plan is ultimately over the course of this season. But it seems like they're trying to find that happy medium of there are certain things that maybe they just can't change about his game at this point, even though he's a young guy. And if that's his natural inclination, it's not fair on him. And it's probably not a reasonable expectation to assume that, okay, well, he's just going to be able to change his game and it'll be fine. They're probably trying to figure out, how do we still give him the opportunity to play the game in the way that he likes it, but also learn this system, learn how to become more defensive, be more responsible on the puck, and eventually move your way up in the pairings, so that way you can then continue to be challenged and be that defenseman that they clearly see the potential in for him. But, if that means he's got to be on the third line for much of this year, okay, we continue to see improvement. We continue to see him contribute offensively, because there's nothing wrong with him doing that. It's as long as he's doing that and being a defenseman. Like, that's his primary job, then I think we will still continue to see him kind of move up the ladder.
I think part of the plan for him and part of his projected contribution is to eventually be the quarterback on one of the 2 power play units for this team.
Yes. Yep.
But
he's been.
So when you're struggling with your defensive responsibilities, you can't be a liability out there.
I'm going to throw in maybe a little of a surprising stick tap. VL. This is a guy. So I was watching the game and his name came up a couple of times. And I just want to give him a stick tap because this guy, he is a completely different player this season. When we saw his name on the roster after camp, I thought, you people have to be insane, This guy is such a major liability. There's nothing, for as much as I agree with you on, I hate, allowing a shorthanded goal. I hate pointless fighting because it's a tool. It's supposed to serve a purpose at a certain time. And there's a time you do it and a time you don't do it, because sometimes if you choose the wrong time, it actually can be very damaging to your team. It can really cause problems and cost the game. And so last year, he had come up fewer than a handful of times. And every time he came up, he was dropping the gloves almost immediately for seemingly no reason. And maybe whoever was making that decision thought, well, we need a tough guy. And so it really makes you wonder, what the heck were they telling this guy to do last year?
Yeah. Or what
came up.
What they were saying his role was, what was expected of him in his role.
Right. And I have to say, stick tap to him this year, because he's not doing that. He's contributing positively. He's where he needs to be. He's not out there helping out David Pastrňák like Marat Husnudinov is, but just considering the change and the difference and the fact that he's no longer this just crazy liability, stick taps to him for taking on this different role, this different job, and just continuing to play and earning his spot.
Yep, that's fine. I'm good with that stick tap.
Yeah.
Penalty box for me. Again, it sounds like we talk about this week in and week out, but the penalties, they've got to stop. Like, you can't give a team like the Leafs 5-6 power play opportunities. You can't give the Montreal Canadiens 7 power play opportunities, 2 of which were 5-on-3s. Now, I understand that in some circumstances, i.e., refs who are incompetent and inept and allow the crowd to make the penalty calls for them. Be that as it may, you still have to kill them off. Now, you've been lucky. You've been lucky because your penalty kill has been operating at a very good pace.
Yes.
The problem with that is you don't get David Pastrňák on the ice as much as you need him, or Morgan Geekie, or anyone else who's not on one of those PK units. Not to mention that you're fatiguing the players who are on those penalty kill units. So please, can we stop? And we stop with the 5, 6, and 7 penalties a game.
A funny thought did cross my mind as I was watching that Montreal game. At one point, there had been a series of Bruins penalties, and finally Pasta was out there, either for 5-on-5 play or power play. I don't remember, but he had a lot of jump. And the announcer, I think Judd was saying, is like, well, he hasn't been on in a little bit. And I just remember thinking, oh, that explains why he's got so much energy. He's just been sitting there for
resting. Jesus.
So, I mean, that was nice, but I don't want that on a regular basis at all.
I mean, again, Jeremy Swayman was spectacular in that game against Montreal. And I could be talking out of my butthole, but I don't know that he's ever lost in his career to the Canadiens.
That would be fun to find
I'll
out.
have to check that out. And another milestone in that game is that Victor Arvidsson scored his 200th career NHL goal. Okay. And before anyone goes crazy, the Bruins didn't leave the bench to celebrate, just making note of it. 200 goals in Victor's career.
The final penalty box, I mean, you kind of have said this, just we're throwing the refs in because the number of times that David Pastrňák has been assaulted out there and received 0 calls, it's because it's getting to a point that it's becoming a little egregious, I think.
I agree with you. And, the fact that the refs are being duped in many circumstances by the embellishment, and why they don't call the embellishment is mind-boggling to me. But that's a story that we could do a whole freaking podcast on. That. All right. So we alluded to the week ahead. The Bruins are facing the Carolina Hurricanes. The last time these two teams faced each other was on November 1st. Now, Carolina is coming off of back-to-back games that they played Friday night and Saturday night. Both games went into overtime.
They're still very, very strong on the shooting side of things. But the Bruins, that game that you alluded to, that's really when we saw the Bruins defense kick it up a notch, because the Bruins were able to hold the Canes to under 30 shots on goal, and this is a team that to that point had been averaging 33 shots on goal. So the fact that the Bruins were able to not allow that to happen was really when you noticed, okay, this defense is actually starting to do things. As long as the defense can do its job, it's going to be a low-scoring game, just like the other one. But hopefully, if the D can smother the offense for Carolina, the game will go by quickly, because it's going to be a boring game.
So, as my friend Karoline alluded to, the Bruins, after tonight, they're heading for their annual trip out west. They play the Anaheim Ducks on Wednesday night at the ripe old time of 10 p.m. Eastern time. Then they face the Los Angeles Kings on a rare Friday night game, which is 10:30 p.m.
Oh, God.
Eastern Standard Time. And then the 23rd, which is a Sunday night. This schedule just bites. Anyways, at 8 p.m. All games on Nesson. And my hope, there's a potential 6 points there.
Yeah.
I would like them to come back with at least 3 points.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love them to come back with more than that.
Yeah.
But, the game against Anaheim, they should want to seek some retribution after Anaheim embarrassed them at home. That was the 7-5 loss at home.
That was a circus.
And I think that was the big turning point, the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the shit way the team was playing.
No, that was Ottawa.
I know.
2 games later.
That was just demoralizing. Absolutely demoralizing.
Yep.
But up until recently, Anaheim was one of the hottest teams in the league. But since, they've lost 3 games in a row. So they could be right. They could be right for the pickings. I think they are getting some good goaltending from Lucas Dostal. Is that how you say it right now? He's I took the goalie standings this morning. He's third in the league with a .903 save percentage, but right behind him is Jeremy Swayman.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see a goaltending duel in the Anaheim. Who knows?
Yep. Or the Bruins will do what they do best and make the Anaheim goalie look like a Vezina candidate.
I know. Let's hope they don't. And then, they're off to face the LA Kings, who are a top 6 team in the league right now. Yeah. And before their game tonight, they are winners of 4 in a row. So they're on a bit of a roll. And then they finished this trip in San Jose with the likes of Macklin Celebrini, who, no surprise, he leads the Sharks in points. He's got 10 goals. 17 assists. I'm not sure about their goaltending situation there, because San Jose is right now one of the bottom 17s in the league.
Yeah.
So
they're just going to have to fight against long travel and time change. That's the wild card that you just never know how the body's going to respond. Otherwise, I feel confident that if they were playing in Boston, I would have no qualms with saying they should easily walk away with 5 points, if not 6. But we've seen them struggle, and it's not just Boston. It's any East Coast team that has to do such a quick turnaround in California with hardly any time for acclimation. It can be challenging.
Such a New York Rangers, they can win anywhere but Madison Square Garden, apparently. So, it'll be interesting to see how the tone gets set for this trip. But until then, we're going to enjoy the fact that the Bruins are sitting in first place in the Atlantic.
Crazy. As always, like and subscribe for more content, and be sure to leave a rating and review to help other Bruins fans find us. You can support the podcast by joining our Patreon or following us on all of our socials at Tape to Tape MK, and on Substack at tapetotapemk.substack.com. As always, go Bees!
Go Bees!